Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share an update on my experience with the Elgato 4K 60S Plus. At roughly $400 US, this is one of the most impressive capture devices on the market, in my opinion. But that doesn't make it perfect by any means. In fact, I've gone through a tremendous amount of frustration with it thus far, but I hope that's really a product of it just being so new that Elgato hasn't gotten a tremendous amount of feedback. It also could just be based on my personal use case scenario. But getting right to it, for those of you that missed the unboxing, this $400 little encoder box gives you the ability to throw a 4K 60p signal into that HDMI input. And then, of course, if you need to, send it out through the output to your monitor or television of choice. And you can capture up to 4K at 60 frames per second, HDR, but no tone mapping. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. If you do, then you're probably a little bit disappointed. But moving aside, other resolutions that it supports, 1080p at 60 frames per second and 720p at 60 frames per second. So if you're looking for a streaming card that can do 1440p, this isn't the right device. And remember, this isn't really a card. This is an encoder in an aluminum box. And that's impressive because it means you do not need a computer to capture content at, quite frankly, the highest possible quality, at least here in 2020. The other beautiful part about it is that you can record straight to SD. So if you do want to use a second PC, you can, but you don't need to. This also means that because you can capture straight to an SD card, you can use this to capture off of virtually any 4K device. Not that you can't do that with Elgato's internal cards, but remember, this is doing all of the heavy lifting, all of the work, so to speak. So unlike a PCI Express internal card that is, of course, less expensive from Elgato, that is capable of even more than this, it is still going to require a relatively powerful PC to carry the load in terms of CPU and GPU. Here, it's all being done in this box. So whether I want to hook up my A7R4 and see what, straight capture to an SD card in, HEVC, because that is what we have here, X265 looks like, I can do that, which to me makes it far more versatile than something like an internal card, because it is a standalone device. Yes, you will need to power it. You see that power port right there. It is a Type-C port, and it does come with a charging brick, not charging, but power brick. And you'll need to wire that up, but this is totally optional. The only reason you'd ever use this USB port is if you're connecting it to a PC for live streaming. There is a 200 millisecond latency on this, but no latency in terms of the input and output. So if you're console gaming or PC gaming and you just want to capture on this, again, single system, you generally don't need a piece of hardware like this, but if you want the highest quality out there, and again, no tax on your system, this is, at least on paper, a perfect solution if the resolutions I mentioned at the top of the video are suitable for you. Now for me, they are, because I don't game really in anything other than 4K, as well as I do have a Samsung 32:9 ultra wide, super ultra wide, mega, whatever you want to call it. And that, of course, is not a resolution that this supports. But 4K gaming on console, both my Xbox, PS4, obviously a great pairing for this. Really simple. It is as simple as just plugging it in and starting your capture. And again, you can capture to a PC if you prefer, or the most simple solution, which is the SD card. And inside the SD card's formatting, essentially, there is a text file that allows you to play with settings. So if you're wondering, well, Ed, how do you change any settings if you're capturing straight to an SD card and you're not using a PC? That text file gives you that tweakability, whether we're talking about if you just want to pull audio from HDMI or an analog mix. We're talking about if you want to control the volume settings, basically all of the elements that you would expect to be able to control. And that little text file is very straightforward and very easy to edit. You literally just change a numerical value, which Elgato explains. But on the support side of things, and by the way, you do have an analog input here at the front too. on the support side of things, I've had quite a bit of frustration with this. So while I've described good things about this, now we're going to get to the downside, for me at least personally. And also, by the way, this record button, which, of course, if you're using standalone, you're going to want to use this. I've hooked it up to my A7R4 and captured. And, you know, it's just nice to have that ability, but this is a capacitive button. Wish it was a tactile button, but for whatever reason, they decided to go with capacitive. But what are the problems I've experienced with it? And I guess that's what a lot of you have been waiting to hear. First and foremost, setting this up with my gaming PC and just wanting to be able to capture 4K content, gaming content, as well as mixed use on my desktop if I want to do tutorials or anything like that for you, which of course this should be able to chew up and spit out without issue, has been a little bit of a nightmare. Why? Well, first of all, I am beyond computer literate, and I just haven't been able to get this to capture the audio, even, you know, via HDMI. Of course, that's how we're sending it, right, into the card, into the capture device. To capture both my audio through a microphone as well as the audio from my PC, and that's all digital. We're not talking about an analog mix. I'm using my Astro A50s, and by the way, if anyone has input on this, feel free to chime in, because right now as it stands, Elgato is working on a fix for me. I spent a lot of time on the phone with them before I gave in to actually contacting them, reaching out to both Corsair as well as Elgato to see what they had in mind. I spent a lot of my own time because I really didn't think that there was something wrong with this. I thought it had to be me. Unfortunately, it's not me. So the setup is as follows. Essentially just, you know, output from my 2080 Ti, and then I'm using the Astro A50s, which of course are over USB. So even though it's a wireless headset, all digital, so everything should be coming out of the HDMI output with the way, of course, that I have Elgato's own sound capture utility set up. But essentially what it boils down to is that I'm forced to either just get in-game audio or desktop audio and no microphone audio. Doesn't matter how I configure Elgato sound capture utility. It makes no difference. I've tried every single combination. I've spent several hours on the phone with Elgato support, and they're not incredibly well versed yet with this product because of how new it is. So Elgato kind of gets a pass on this, and that's why I said it's so new that you might want to give it a little time to bake in the oven here. But that doesn't mean it doesn't do things right, because when it came to just hooking it up to a console, or like I said, any of my cameras with clean HDMI out, it captures the audio and video perfectly. It comes down to mixing in your own audio, microphone, where things get sticky. So that's been my problem. And it might sound like something that all of you watching this could say, oh, Ed, easy fix. I'm going to tell you how to fix it. Trust me, it's not fixable, at least as of yet. And I don't know if this has to do with their 4K capture utility or it's hardware related. I don't believe it's hardware related because I've gotten it to work, but basically I'm forced to use this in a 2 PC setup, which of course defeats the purpose of having something like this as opposed to a PCI Express solution. So the only way I've been able to get my microphone, and that is any microphone, and God knows I have too many, as most of you could imagine, but let's just say, for example, a Blue Yeti, to mix with game audio. So I've had to actually use my Spectre 13T, that is the late 2019 refresh Ice Lake, connect this to it, use their 4K capture utility. Of course, the input is coming from my gaming rig, and then inside the 4K capture utility on my Spectre, point the microphone at the Blue Yeti, and then make sure that the capture software on my gaming rig is sending everything to HDMI, which is how I always have it, right? And then make sure in the capture software on the Spectre that it's pointed when it asks you inside of the gaming capture, the audio capture software, what is your Elgato capture device hooked up to? Select the 4K 60S Plus. That has been the only combination where I've been able to actually get what you would think this would do very easily with a single system setup, even if most people aren't out to do that. where everything is digital. Because again, no analog mix on my end. So I was able to get that working, but even when I did get it working, some of the video is garbled, frankly. Blocking, it's breaking up. It's not dropping frames. It's literally, I don't even know how to describe it. I may end up showing you all a demo, but until I've determined that it is not something to do with my setup and it is solely on Elgato and this piece of equipment, I'm not trying to throw Elgato under the bus, but of course, keeping it real and honest as usual. So even when I did get this working in just a traditional means, which again is just capturing gameplay and my voice at the same time, which took 2 computers, even though this should mean that I don't need a computer at all, I still got some breakup in video quality. You could set the bit rate up to nearly 200. I mean, it's really a matter of what you want. And that's part of what I like about this. I mean, the fact that we're getting, the latest and most efficient codec on earth at such a valuable or cost-effective price, 400 US, and you can get it for a little less. Corsair has their 10% off coupon for first-time purchases, accounts, things like that. That looked great, but again, the garbled, mixed up video signal that almost looks like maybe there's something hardware awry, something's wrong in here. That's disappointing to say the least. In terms of standalone, when I'm just capturing straight to an SD card, and again, I have the capture information or settings already set on any PC because I have multiple gaming systems, it will capture the audio, but I cannot get digital audio in terms of microphone input. Even when it's set to it correctly, it just can't get on here. Same goes back for goes for any audio that I play back. So if I play back one of my own videos, for example, I'm doing some video editing, I want to proof it. And again, I think of tutorials and things I might start to do on the channel. I thought this would be able to capture everything at the highest quality possible, and I cannot get the mix right. So hopefully Elgato addresses that. I'm a little more concerned, though, about the breakup in the 2-system setup that I just told you about, because that should be flawless, and unfortunately it is not. In addition to that, the only thing I can say is that when you do hook this up to console, I'm not going to talk about party chat, things like that, that will become a little bit more cumbersome, but anyone who is already console capturing with Elgato products knows what they need to do in order to get party chat and things like that mixed in, since they're an analog mix. The capture quality is great. I mean, it looks as good as it does when I'm playing live, and that's what I expected out of this. I mean, 4K, 60 frames per second. Yes, I can't hit the HDR that I'm running with my latest addition to the tech setup, my true HDR Asus NVIDIA G-Sync Beast, the 2-year-old gem, but not getting into that right now. The whole point is this thing works, but I've gone through so many problems that I think most users out there would throw this thing out the window at this point. Now, I'm not giving up yet. I'm waiting on Elgato for some support feedback from their support tool that collects data, because we've troubleshot every possibility. And again, even though my setup is pure digital, this bad boy is just not cooperating. And even in the 2-system setup, the inconsistency in the video quality has been an issue. So really the only places, two that I can say I've seen uniform high quality performance right now really live in console output as well as camera output. And that's part of what I purchased this for, but I really purchased this because it could do everything. Again, in those 3 set resolutions that I mentioned at the top of this video. So that's the update. I mean, I really like it, but I'm really frustrated with it, and I hope that Elgato is able to get back to me with a solution, because this is, in my opinion, the only dynamic capture device that I'm personally interested in, because I don't have a Twitch channel. Anyone that follows my channel now already knows that. I'm not saying there won't be one in the future. I've been a gamer for a very long time. If you have followed my channel over the years, you probably know that already, even though I'm not gaming centric. I cover a lot of gaming hardware, God knows GPUs, as well as keyboards, mice, you name it. And that's because I've been a gamer forever, pretty much, both console and PC, going back to, well, I don't need to date myself. But hopefully I get things resolved with this because, again, there's nothing else like it, and I think it holds a lot of promise for me, both personally and professionally. But that pretty much rounds things out. I know I didn't give you guys examples, but that may be coming in the full review, but I'm kind of giving Elgato a chance before, we take a dump on this product. So that's pretty much the story. If anyone does have input, please provide it. If you own one of these and you've been using it and you've been able to accomplish what I cannot, which again is just getting, it to capture the HDMI output from my 2080 Ti, carrying my audio and, of course, my mic input, all digital, as well as me still being able to hear it on any headset, because I've tried multiple, not just the Astro A50s. I also tried Logitech G933s and 935s with no success. Please chime in, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's just literally zero support for this thing online right now because of how new it is. And even the guys that I've spoken to at Elgato, as nice as they are, as competent as they are, they really haven't played with this thing either. So they only have experience really to work from with the other capture cards that are pre-existing. And then on top of all of that, even having that experience, it still leaves you at a loss with this one because it's unlike anything Elgato's ever done because the encoder is sitting here in this breakout box. That rounds it out. I wasn't planning such a long video, but I spent a hell of a lot of time trying to make this thing purr. At any rate, hope you all enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. And please stay safe. Later.